Hello friends, how are you doing? Right now, a very big game is happening in the world. The first player is a country that wants to keep being the most powerful. This country is the United States of America. America's top goal is to protect its position as the world leader. China and Russia are the other two main players in this game. These two countries are in a tough spot. They must keep trying to challenge America's powerful position. Their idea is similar to something called the Monroe Doctrine. What is the Monroe Doctrine? James Monroe was an American president who helped America become very powerful. He created a rule in 1823. This rule was a warning to other powerful countries and a promise to control a certain area. It said that North and South America belonged to America's area of control. European countries were not allowed to take land in this area. No one could build colonies there. Powerful countries from around the world were coming to this area to control its resources. These were European countries. The Europeans took over this area and stole its natural resources. Even the people who started the USA had treated the Native Americans the same way. But now the USA did not want to let other countries do the same thing again. The Monroe Doctrine's second point was a warning. Any attack from outside would be seen as starting a war against the United States. The attacking country would have to fight the Americans. The third point made sure America stayed out of wars in Europe. The fourth point said the U.S. would not interfere with European colonies that already existed in the area. The fourth point was actually tricky. It all began 2 years before the Monroe Doctrine. America was getting involved in the Spanish colony of Mexico. Mexico became independent in 1821. 2 years after Mexico became independent, the United States announced its doctrine. The doctrine was announced at a very important moment in history. Latin America was becoming free from Spain and Portugal. In the early 1800s, yellow and green colors covered most of Central and South America. These two colors show the Spanish and Portuguese colonies in the Americas. This light green color shows the 13 states of the United States. But in 1822 you can see many different colors on the map. These colors show newly free countries and areas that people were fighting over. Some areas were being attacked by France and other European countries. At that time, the Monroe Doctrine was a smart decision. The United States had stopped other countries from taking land in its area of control. Now the USA could easily become the only powerful country in the area. You can watch this full story in the 10th episode of The History of America. Series by DSJA. Superpower starts by taking control of its own nearby area. No country can become a superpower in just one day. China and Russia are facing the same challenge. China's power in South Asia and what it means for the world first. Let's look at China. Look at this area from India to Thailand and Laos to Vietnam. Then this area stretches from the South China Sea to the East China Sea, Korea and Mongolia. This is the area where China has influence. China wants to create its own rules in this area. It wants its own Monroe Doctrine here. James Monroe had done the same thing in 1823, but the Chinese have a problem. This problem is India, which is friends with America. Even China's friend Pakistan does more business with the USA than with China. Vietnam is also friends with America. Taiwan and South Korea completely depend on U.S. help to stay safe. U.S. ships patrol the South China Sea and the East China Sea with help from friendly countries. South Korea, Japan, and the Philippines help with these patrols. China is angry but can't do anything about this. This happened even in 2022. It happened in the part of the Pacific Ocean that China says belongs to them. 2 U.S. aircraft carriers patrol the waters that are being fought over. China told the Americans to ask for permission before coming in. But the U.S. ships kept patrolling the area without asking China. In this way, the Americans have surrounded the Chinese. China wants to break free from being surrounded. China also wants to create its own world and regional rules. Problems. Stopping China's dream of becoming a superpower, of course, anyone can announce their own rule. But that is just the start. You also have to make that rule work. It has to work in the area you care about. Sometimes you even have to use force to make it work. China is not powerful enough yet to do that. It cannot follow President James Monroe's example. China cannot stop other countries from getting involved in its area of control. China wanted to do that, but it doesn't have the power. So what choices does China have? Is China staying quiet? No, friends. China is working on a long-term plan. And that's one of the most important parts of the Great Game China's strategy. Winning without fighting, the first step is to reduce America's influence in the area. It has chosen a different rule than the Monroe Doctrine. That's called the winning without fighting strategy. This strategy means competing all the time in every area. This competition has its own way of working. It doesn't follow rules, laws, or even politeness. Even the United States doesn't follow rules very well. It is also a tough competitor. It doesn't have moral high ground. We will also show you American tactics in this series. But for now, we are only showing you what China does. Investing money in America is the main part of China's strategy. Before COVID-19, China was putting up to $47 billion into America every year. Up to $47 billion. This investment had a hidden reason. It was done to steal American technology. Because China is far behind the United States in technology. China sends its people with lots of money to start companies in America and China, with Canadian and American partners, or it works together with some big American technology company. The Chinese investors specifically look for big companies. These companies are mostly connected to defense or artificial intelligence. These companies are mostly owned by private people. Their American owners cannot say no to big Chinese investments. Even those Chinese investors are usually American citizens. That's why they agree to work with them. But a Chinese investor doesn't really care about America in their heart. They are usually a secret Chinese spy. However, not all Chinese investors are spies. There are only a few, and they work on secret projects. They work for the Chinese intelligence agency. Their secret is usually discovered many years later. The company suddenly finds out something strange. That their technology is being copied in China too. Then they think something wrong is happening. Some secret plan. They suspect they're Chinese investors, but they can't blame them directly. There are two reasons for this. First, they can't ask the U.S. government for help, because then the American government would also check their company. The company would be blamed for working together with spies. Then news reports would hurt the company's reputation. So billionaire companies don't take such risks. Second, they don't have proof. They can't prove that their investor is a spy for the Chinese MSS. Then there is another reason. The Chinese spy usually runs away before the company figures out who they are. The Chinese also build up dollar reserves as a strategy. China and Hong Kong currently have $3.7 trillion in foreign money saved. This money can easily mess up the dollar's value. The Chinese can flood the market with dollars and cause problems for the U.S. economy. China's third weapon is cyber attacks. U.S. security, space missions, and defense companies often complain about this. They say that Chinese hackers steal their information. This happens all the time. Even the U.S. weapons maker company Lockheed Martin is not safe. Its 600,000 files about F-35 and Boeing planes were stolen by the Chinese. Even the Chinese never said this wasn't true. This was a huge loss for U.S. intelligence. They suddenly discovered that their secret technologies were being stolen. These technologies were being sent through emails. So this is the third step China is taking to stay up to date with American technology. Now you have learned about China's role in the Great Game. It will be explained with more details in the upcoming videos. Where does Russia stand? And what is it doing in this great game? Now, let's explain Russia's role in this game. Russia was a superpower until not long ago. It was competing against the U.S. until 1991, but now the United States is the top superpower. Russia doesn't have the resources or technology to openly compete with the U.S. Its defense technology is better than China's, but not as good as the U.S. Russia's historical area of control is also lost. It is now under American influence. Now look at the map again. The pre-World War I Russian Empire and the USSR were both great powers. Russia influenced many countries beyond its western borders. This area stretched from Finland down to Estonia and from there to Turkey in the south. Then from Georgia and Azerbaijan to Central Asia, all areas were under its control. Even its regional control reached all the way to the Sea of Japan. But now all the Eastern European countries are friends with the US, because these countries are afraid of Russian attacks. All these countries, except Belarus, are now members of either NATO or the European Union. Afghanistan, the Central Asian countries, and even the Sea of Japan is free from Russian influence. Russia is now ready to do anything to get back its area of control. It has no other choice.